My name is Alex Carter. I'm 28 years old, and this is how I turned the garage. My dad banished me into the gym he now pays me $200 a month to use. The garage doors slide open with a smooth hum as I step inside, swiping my keycard at the smart entry panel. The scent of fresh rubber mats and polished chrome fills the air. LED strip lights line the ceiling, casting a clean white glow across the room. Racks of top-tier equipment gleam like trophies. The squat cage stands in perfect symmetry beside the dumbbell wall, and a digital schedule blinks softly on a wall-mounted screen. I toss my towel over the bench and glance at my watch. Outside. I hear him, my father's voice, half casual, half sheepish. "Hey son, I booked my 5 p.m. slot." My jaw tightens involuntarily, even now, because the first time I stood in this garage, I was 16, and it was nothing like this. Flashback, one memory seared into my skin like frostbite. It was pouring that night. I remember the cold, soaking through my shirt as I dragged a thin mattress, already damp, through the mud and up the steps of the garage. The wind howled. My shoes squelched with each step. I was shivering so badly, my teeth clattered. But I didn't cry. Not in front of him. We'd fought again. I can't even remember what it was about that time. My grades, the clothes I wore, the way I spoke to my stepmother. It never mattered. He always needed a reason to remind me I didn't belong. And that night, he shouted the words that carved into my chest like a brand. "You're a man now. A man sleeps where he earns the right to." So he made me sleep in the garage. It wasn't a room. It wasn't even insulated. Just concrete walls, exposed pipes, and the stench of oil and old metal. I curled up in the corner, hugging myself, under a threadbare blanket, and listened to the rain drum the tin roof above me. That was the night I knew I wasn't his son. Not really. I was just another mouth to control or punish. And he liked having someone to punish. I stayed in that garage for 2 years. 2 long years of silence, shame, and survival. But somewhere in the middle of all that darkness, a seed took root. I didn't know it yet, but something in me had decided. One day, I'll take everything he used against me and make it mine. I grew up in a typical suburban 2-story house in Ohio, the kind with a picket fence, a mowed lawn, and a mailbox that gave off the illusion of a normal, loving family. But behind that front door was a different story. My dad, Rick Carter, was the kind of man who measured worth in sweat and silence. A self-made construction boss, he believed real men didn't cry, didn't talk, and definitely didn't dream. Discipline wasn't just expected in our house, it was practically a game to him, a daily ritual. And I was always the losing player. I was never the son he wanted. While other boys were throwing footballs, I was sketching logos in my notebook, folding my dreams into quiet corners. I loved working out, truly did, but I also loved drawing, designing, tinkering with the idea of something that was mine, something beautiful. I didn't want to build walls like my dad. I wanted to build a world I felt safe in, and that made me weak in his eyes. My mum, Laurie, tried to smooth things over. She wasn't cruel, just scared in her own quiet way. Her voice was always soft, her smile always forced. Whenever my dad lashed out, she'd whisper the same thing to me in the hallway. "Just stay quiet and don't give your dad a reason." But silence didn't protect MIT, just trapped me. Her love was passive, And over time, I stopped expecting it to come to my defense. Asterisk then, there was Jamie, my younger sister. Everything I wasn't. She got the pink birthday cakes, the hugs, the framed report cards. She had a room with fairy lights and her own TV. I had chores, lawn duty, dented second-hand sneakers and long stretches of silence at the dinner table. My dad lit up around her, and my mum clung to that warmth like it made up for everything else. I was the outsider in my own home. Asterisk, at 14, I failed shop class. I cried not because I didn't try, but because I wanted to make something right for once. I brought the grade home in silence, but my dad found the report card anyway. That whole week, he walked around smirking and tossing the same words over his shoulder, garage boy. Guess that's where you belong, huh? That nickname stuck in his mouth long before he actually threw me out. Maybe he was just warming up. Asterisk, I was never dumb. But in school, I kept my head down. Teachers rarely noticed me, and when they did, it was for zoning out or turning in half-finished work. Truth was, I had a lot to say, just didn't believe anyone would listen. I carried my sketchbook everywhere, filling it with imaginary gym layouts, brand names, logo ideas, even workout machines I didn't have the tools to build. I started doing push-ups in the garage late at night, quietly. I'd stack paint cans and duct tape old wood into makeshift bars. My hands blistered, but I kept going. Asterisk, that cold garage became my sanctuary, my hiding place, my training ground. Asterisk, I dreamed of having my own gym. Not the loud, macho kind like my dad would have built, but something smart, sleek, functional. A space that respected people. A space that gave someone like McQuiet, emotional, underestimated, reason to believe they belonged. Asterisk, but every time my dad caught me doodling or building some scrappy wooden workout rack, he'd snort and shake. His head, dreams, are for losers. Get a trade, Alex. Be a man. Asterisk. So I stopped showing him what I made. Stopped expecting approval. But I never stopped dreaming. Asterisk quietly. I was 17 the night everything cracked wide open. I came home late from my shift at the smoothie bar, drenched from head to toe, rain dripping from my jacket as I stepped onto the porch, my shoes squelched with every step. I just wanted to dry off, maybe microwave something, and collapse. But the moment I reached the front door, I heard yelling sharp, booming, unmistakably, my father. My stomach dropped. I stood there, soaked and frozen, listening. Asterisk, someone had told him I was applying to design school, not trade school like he'd demanded. And now it was all pouring out. You think you're better than me now, he shouted, pacing the living room as if the walls couldn't contain his fury. You think drawing is a job. You sleep in my house. You follow my rules. I stepped inside, water pooling at my feet, but I didn't shrink. Not this time. Something in me cracked open. I don't know where the strength came from, but I looked him in the eye and said, I'm not staying in a house where I'm treated like a stray dog. That's all he needed to hear, before I could even blink. He'd grabbed my work bag and tossed it out the front door like trash. Garage or leave, he snapped, his voice low and final. The silence after that was deafening. My mum stood at the kitchen sink, back turned, hands frozen on a dish she wasn't washing. Jamie peeked out from the hallway, eyes wide, then disappeared, like she never saw a thing. So I chose. I carried my mattress to the garage, that night thin, damp, and heavy. I grabbed my dumbbells, my sketchbook, a duffel bag of clothes. No one offered to help. No one even said goodbye. The garage door creaked closed behind me, sealing me into cold cement and stale air. There was no heating, no privacy, no insulation from the elements or the loneliness. I showered with the garden hose in the early morning before school, teeth chattering in the dark, towel wrapped around my waist as I stood behind the bushes hoping no neighbors would see. My mum avoided me like a ghost. Jamie walked past me like I didn't exist. The silence in that house was louder than any shouting dot. Asterisk, but somewhere in that silence, something inside me shifted. Something hard, something steady. That was the night I stopped being a son and started being a survivor. Asterisk. I barely graduated high school. No graduation party, no proud handshake from my dad, not even a picture on the fridge. Just a limp diploma handed to a kid no one expected much from. I had no support, no savings, and nowhere to go but forward. I enrolled in a local community college and took whatever classes I could afford, showing up half awake most mornings after spending my nights scrubbing locker rooms at a rundown gym on the edge of town. It wasn't glamorous, but it was the only world that made sense to me. Sweat, repetition, discipline, things I could control. Asterisk, every night, I returned to the garage that had become both my prison and my forge. My thin mattress sat in the corner beside a rickety desk I built from scrap wood. I spent hours sketching ideas: foldable workout benches, compact weight racks, modular systems for small spaces. I dreamed of a fitness space that wasn't intimidating, that welcomed people like me, quiet, creative, overlooked. I tinkered with old hinges, repurposed wood from the alley behind the gym, and designed the first prototype of what I didn't know yet would change my life. I called it Garage Bench 1. It collapsed into a 2-foot slab, could be stored under a bed, and didn't cost more than $40 in materials. My dad saw it once and laughed in my face. Asterisk, you'll be back begging me for work, he scoffed, standing in the doorway like he was inspecting a failed science project. Drawing benches and playing handyman in a garage won't feed you. Asterisk, my mum stood behind him, arms crossed, eyes on the floor. She didn't say a word. Asterisk, by the time I was 21, I was barely hanging on. The cold nights were unbearable in winter. My fingers would go numb before I could finish a single sketch. Then, one night, I came home to find the garage door padlocked. My stuff was still inside. So was I. No warning, no explanation. My dad later claimed it was for safety, but he knew I was in there. I huddled in my sleeping bag that night, breath clouding the air, praying I wouldn't freeze to death. I nearly did. That was the last night I ever slept in that house. Asterisk, the next morning, I grabbed what I could, climbed out the side window, and left. I crashed at a friend's place for a few weeks. An air mattress in a kitchen corner, shared with 2 roommates and a cat who hated me. Then I landed a minimum wage job at a discount gym, wiping down treadmills and stocking protein bars. But I showed up early. I stayed late. I memorized every machine, every client's routine, every trainer's advice. Within a year, I earned my personal training certification and started working with clients. I didn't have a car, just a second-hand bike and a cracked phone, but I was finally doing something that felt like mine. Asterisk, late at night, I filmed workouts in the gym storage room. Just my hands, my voice, and the beat-up equipment. I uploaded them to a YouTube channel called Garage Gains. I didn't show my face. I wasn't ready, but people responded. Slowly, at first 10 views, 50, 100. Then one video on resistance band workouts hit 10,000. Then 50,000. Suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. By 23, I could finally afford my own place. A tiny one-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner. It smelled like starch and old carpet, but it was mine. I lived off $1,100 a month, clipped coupons, trained clients in public parks, and invested every extra dollar into building my brand. My Garage Gains channel evolved. Beginner guides, minimalist workouts, for people with no space and no equipment. The same kind of people I used to be. Then everything changed. At 25, I launched my own personal training app Reclaim. Every feature, every module, every graphic was built from the sketches I once drew shivering on the floor of my father's garage. The app focused on people starting from zero. Small spaces, low confidence, no gym memberships. It was everything I had needed and never had. One of my clients, an older guy. I'd trained for months, turned out to be an angel investor. He'd lost 40 pounds with my help and said he hadn't felt this strong since college. He saw the app, the sketches, the drive and believed in it. In me, with his backing, I opened the first Reclaim Fitness pilot location 6 months later. It wasn't flashy, just clean, functional, and community-focused. No judgment, no toxic culture. Just real people putting in real work. Then came a second location. Then branded gear, shirts, mats, water bottles, stamped with "From the Garage Up." What started as punishment became my foundation. What my dad locked me into, I built my future from, and I never begged him for anything. At 27, I bought the house I grew up in, the same two-story in Ohio, where I'd been called Garage Boy, where birthdays passed in silence, where I once showered with a garden hose behind the bushes. My father had lost it during the pandemic, defaulting on the mortgage after construction work dried up, and he refused to adapt. Now he lived in a cramped rental across town, picking up part-time gigs wherever he could. I didn't buy the house to move in. I bought it to reclaim it. Not out of spite, but something deeper, something like closure. The first thing I renovated wasn't the kitchen or the bedrooms, it was the garage. I ripped out every oil-stained floor tile, insulated the walls, installed top-tier flooring, mirrors, equipment racks, smart lights, climate control, and soundproofing. A sleek LED sign hung from the far wall. Reclaim, where pain becomes power. Every inch of that space was intentional, deliberate. Not a trace of the cold, broken place I had once been left to rot in. It was a sanctuary now for people rebuilding themselves, just like I had. Then, I ran an ad in the local paper and online forums. Private one-on-one training sessions available. Especially welcoming old-school, hard-working construction dads who want to reclaim their strength. It wasn't subtle. I didn't want it to be. He saw the ad. Of course he did. One day, the smart lock pinged. The garage door opened. I heard the scuff of heavy boots on the mat. I turned around, tall, solid, every inch the man he never expected me to become. He stood there, frozen, looking around the space in disbelief. Wait, you run this? He asked, eyes sweeping across the gym rows of dumbbells. The padded flooring, the polished steel. I nodded, calm, steady. You'll need a membership. $200 a month. First session's free, though. He let out a dry laugh like he was trying to play it off, like we could pretend the past didn't hang in the air between us. But I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. Asterisk, this was the space you locked me in, I said, voice quiet but clear. The space I nearly froze in. Now it's the space you need to feel strong again. Asterisk, he didn't say anything, just looked around, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets, suddenly smaller than I'd ever seen him. Asterisk, I took him through a full workout. No shortcuts, no personal comments, just the movements. Reps, breath, correction, guidance. He grunted through it, sweat beading on his forehead, pride cracking around the edges. Asterisk, when we finished, he sat on the bench, staring at the Reclaim logo on the wall. Asterisk, he didn't speak, but his silence said more than all the years of shouting ever did. Asterisk and me. I didn't need an apology, because I already had the only thing I'd ever wanted in that garage-power. Asterisk, not over him, over myself. Asterisk. I never raised my voice, not once, not even when he deserved it. I never threw back an insult, never listed the nights I froze on a concrete floor, or the mornings I walked to school with wet hair and blistered hands. I let my success speak louder than anything I could have shouted, and somehow that silence cut deeper than any revenge ever could. My dad started coming back twice a week, every week. Booked his sessions online like everyone else, paid full price, showed up on time, followed instructions. The man who once called fitness a waste of time now asked me for cues on form, advice on nutrition, tips on recovery. I didn't rub it in. I just trained him, professional, focused, unshakable. Asterisk, and with every $200 he paid, I put it toward something that mattered: free memberships for teens who were bullied, overlooked, underestimated, kids who reminded me of myself. I built a program around it, Reclaim Roots, gave them a space to grow strong, find voice, reclaim their own stories. The money my dad spent trying to rebuild himself, I used it to make sure other kids never had to break in the first place. Asterisk, I still lived on my own. Apartments nicer, now, bigger, brighter. Sunlight in the mornings, my own coffee pot, my own name on the lease. I didn't need my parents, and that freedom wasn't bitter, it was peaceful. I walked by the old house sometimes on my morning runs. The siding's new, windows upgraded, but it's the garage that always catches my eye. Lit up, alive, a quiet hum of power and breath and movement inside. I smile when I see it, not with anger, not with triumph, just with a calm sense of closure. Asterisk, my mum reached out once. A text, short, careful, I'm proud of you, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to help back then. I read it a few times, let it sit. Eventually, I replied. Just one sentence. I didn't want sorry. I wanted love. Too late for one, just in time for the other. She didn't write again, and I didn't expect her to. That was the boundary. I set not out of hate, but because healing comes with knowing when not to reopen old doors. Asterisk, the boy who once lived in a garage no one cared to heat. He doesn't live there anymore. He owns it, transformed it, and in doing so, reclaimed more than Spacey reclaimed himself. Today, I sit on the custom bench I designed, the very first prototype, now polished and bolted to the floor, right where my old mattress used to lie, the coldest corner of the garage, the same spot where I used to curl up at night, shivering, wondering what I had done to deserve silence from the people who were supposed to love me. Above the doorway now hangs a small plaque, brushed steel, engraved in clean lettering, built where I was broken. It catches the light just right, casting a soft glow over the space every morning. A quiet reminder, a full circle truth. Asterisk, the door creaks open, and my dad steps in, gym bag slung over one shoulder. He gives me a nod, nothing more. I nod back. No words exchanged. We don't need them. He knows what this space used to be. He knows who I used to be. And he knows I'm not that boy anymore. Asterisk, I don't train him for revenge anymore. That phase passed long ago. I train him because it reminds me of who I am, know of the fire I've built, the resilience I shaped rep by rep, failure by failure. And because every time I look at him, I'm reminded of who I'll never be again. He made me sleep in the cold. Now he pays to enter the fire I built. Asterisk, and that, more than anything, is the real weight I've learned to carry light as pride, heavy as peace,